Our next question tonight is the mother of a young Indigenous teenager who was filmed being kicked and pinned to the ground by New South Wales police officer last week. What's your question for the panel tonight? And I should just note for our audience, we are not identifying you because your son is not to be identified or named either.
So I just wanted to ask, in these unprecedented times, since a video was released of my son being kicked to the ground by police, a lot of men from my community and other people that just approach me in the public have come to me to say this has happened to them as well. There's been numerous recommendations still not addressed from the 1991 Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody, and the 400 and plus further deaths since then. So why haven't adequate juvenile justice preventions and interventions yet occurred so that police culture and attitudes changes towards our mob, especially our children? And further, should police or cops investigate their colleagues that are having a bad day, or should their violence be assessed by an independent body?
And before we go to the panel, can I ask you, the police commissioner in your state reflected on this incident and said that he thought the officer might have just been having a bad day. How did you receive that comment?
I'm my son's mother, and he's only a child. This is a police officer that's meant to protect and serve and deal with crime. I don't believe he was doing anything criminal. He had every right to be where he was supposed to be. The onus was on him to act professionally. The onus was on him. It's difficult because people can't check their own mindset, what they're doing. I believe not many, a lot of people in the back of their mind, they would think that they have the right to do with us what they want because of that disparity between, you know, the dignity or the humanness of us compared to other people. So I don't think it's my, it's not my responsibility. I'm advocating for my son. If it was done in another area, then that person would be charged with assault. So we want systemic change, and we don't see that there's any those kind of comments. And what Prime Minister Morrison said shows any will for the dignity and our rights as Aboriginal people.
Let me put that to you, Jim Chalmers.
Well, first of all, to you, Auntie, I can't imagine what it was like to see the footage of your son and what happened to him, and clearly as well the injustice of the situation with David, with your son. And what it reminds us is that even for those of us who care very deeply, not just about understanding discrimination and injustice, but people who genuinely want to eliminate it, we can understand what this injustice looks like, but we can't understand what it feels like, right? As a 42-year-old white male in this society, the reason we need to listen to what Meyne said and Nakkiah said and your story, Auntie, as well, is because it's only the accumulation of all of these stories of injustice or of discrimination that we can build up the will to act as a country. And when we were talking before about the Prime Minister and this wonderful country, we can be a wonderful country, but we won't be until we get this right, until we make things right. We won't have social and economic justice for all of us unless and until we have social and economic justice for the first of us. And that's how we need to approach it. And that has, that means a lot of different things. Clearly, it's been disappointing, the progress that hasn't been made since the report into black deaths in custody, clearly. And clearly there's a role for doing better on how we resource our Aboriginal legal services, how we get the justice programs right, how we get the custody notification system right, all of those very specific things. But overarching that, I think, is something, you know, bigger and more important, and it is partly about statement from the heart. But it's also about kind of recognising that until we get this right, we won't fulfil our potential as a country.
You are still relatively early in your political career. You've heard tonight the examples of all the things that have been promised but never done. Can you honestly tell Australians watching tonight that you could actually solve these problems, that you could bring our nation together around the ideas that are needed to actually deliver on the very fine words that have been said time and time again for decades, and actually deliver what Nakkiah has said? Just don't kill black people.
Yeah, well, the responsibility is on all of us. You know, it's not something that one person can change, it's something that we have to change together. But there has to be the will, there has to be the commitment. We have to go beyond explaining or understanding or analysing discrimination. We have to try and eliminate it. And, you know, there have been landmarks along this road. Prime Minister Keating at Redfern around the corner, the Uluru Statement from the Heart, the referendum. There have been all kinds of landmarks along this road, but we're not where we need to be along it. And that will only change when the kinds of stories that we're hearing tonight from the panel and from the audience, you know, when that makes a sufficient difference to how we feel about our country, that we all want to do something about it, not just one person or one party or somebody, but all of us.
Senator Bragg, the truth of it is that in Australia, within the last couple of weeks, if you're a black teenage boy and you swear at a cop, you can end up with your head being slammed into a pavement. If you're a white mining executive, you can press the button and blow up 46,000 years of black heritage on this continent. I mean, and you can do that without any punishment. Does that seem fair?
Well, Hamish, I'm not an Indigenous person, but I've spent the year I've had in public office to try and listen as well as I could in places like Kempsey in the Central Coast and in Redfern, where there are large Indigenous communities. And the feedback I get consistently is we need more control locally to control our affairs so that we can get the policies and the laws that we need that we desire. So that is, like, when I look at Uluru, I mean,
I'm sorry, but that was a question about fairness. Does that those two simple facts together, does that seem fair?
Of course it's not fair because, as I said, I mean, we have failed on Indigenous policy. Australia is a great country, but we have not delivered for Indigenous people. And that is why we need to accept the hand of friendship that I see Uluru as being, which with tangible proposals to improve the lives. I mean, this is what the leadership is.
I saw you nodding, though, all the way through what Meyne and Nakkiah were saying. Did you agree that the Prime Minister was tone deaf in what he said?
No, I think the Prime Minister is talking about what is happening abroad. What I'm referring to tonight is a failure to make Australia a great country for Indigenous people.
So does that mean reform or dismantling or throwing the systems in the bin, or what does it mean? Because I didn't hear an answer from either of you.
Also, Andrew, you said this is a wonderful country. I want you to look these two families in the eye. Sorry to point at your aunties. Look them in the eye and tell them it's a wonderful country.
I said that it was a great country, but it is not delivered for Indigenous people. And that's why we need to do so much work.
It's not going to be a great country until we have equality for all people.
Well, that is the point.
It's a false sense of greatness. It's a mythology you want to feed yourself so you can go, oh, well, everything's good, but these fellas, well, just from to the side, it's their fault. And here's the thing. We're talking about all these landmark cases. We're talking about, oh, what are we going to do? How do we come to the table? We've told you what to do. A lot of the recommendations from the original Royal Inquest, Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody, they weren't implemented. What you can do is you can listen to the families. They can tell you right now what they want. Listen to the families. The answer has been here all along. It's been a lack of political will. So I don't think it's fair to think that we have to say there's this long way to go and we need to figure out an answer. No, we need politicians to implement it, and you just haven't. And at the moment, what's happening is that when we have the Aboriginal young man, you know, getting face slammed in a park by police. That's what he's doing on camera. What is happening behind closed doors? And we know people are getting killed. So what we need to do is listen to the families and just not do it. And you're now going, oh, well, we need to come to the table. We need to figure out a way. The way is there. Use your political will to change it.
And the onus isn't always on us either. That's got to come from you.
Yeah, what are we going to do? Not be Aboriginal?
Reconciliation, that's not the onus on us, that's the onus on you. That's the onus on your ancestors, not ours. You know what I mean? And see, I don't see any change. I don't see anything that's put forward. Both things that came out of both of your mouths was hot and lovely fluff. That's what it was. So, can you give a real answer? I don't know. I haven't heard anything.
And the issue is, Meyne and I are actors and writers. We're up here today because, well, I don't want to speak for you, Meyne, but as an Aboriginal person, you know, first and foremost, I'm here because I feel that responsibility to my community. But there are peak bodies who have done tons of research into this. We have the Aboriginal Legal Service. We have NATSLs. We have NUTCHO. We actually have Aboriginal experts who have put plans forward onto how to actually change things. So you should be listening to them and not sitting here telling Australia, oh, we need a long way to go hand in hand. We've come to the table.
Nakkiah, I agree with you. I actually said in my contribution before that what's lacking here is will and commitment.
Well, both sides.
I'm not pretending that we need to start from scratch here. I think that in my, you know, entire adult life, there's not been a more important statement than the statement from the heart. That is a roadmap. There has not been
As an Aboriginal person, I can tell you that that was a really great statement, but Aboriginal people have said lots of statements along the way.
OK, well,
we've had many great leaders. So if that's the most important statement you've heard, you need to do some more Aboriginal history and talk to more Aboriginal people. OK, Nakkiah. But also what I was saying before about in acknowledging that there hasn't been enough progress since the report on black deaths in custody, obviously. I mean, that is self-evident. So the points that you're making are points that I share. There has been a lack of will, there's been a lack of commitment, and that's meant a lack of progress.
So what's your commitment?
I think, Pat, let's just, unless you want to respond to that, Jim.
I'm happy to respond to it. I mean, my commitment is to implement in full the Uluru Statement from the Heart and to progress the agenda that has been laid down about deaths in custody across all of these issues that we're talking about today.
I'm going to have to interrupt you. That's really great that you want to implement the Uluru Statement of the Heart. That's also a very controversial thing within the Aboriginal community. What we're talking about are recommendations that were recommended back in 1991, majority of which haven't been implemented. Things like the custody notification hotline, which is only available in a certain amount of states and still haven't been implemented in other states.
Yeah,
so very basic things from that. Yeah. So we keep going back to the Uluru Statement of the Heart. Now, what we're talking about is how do we prevent Aboriginal people from being killed in custody.
I know, and that's why I referred to that report. And I specifically mentioned custodial notifications. These are important things that we need to progress.
Yeah, I'm just making a difference.